Welcome to Horror Melee,
a podcast born of a group of people who love to talk and debate horror.
Every episode, one of us picks a movie to review, and the rest of us must either suffer or enjoy that pick.
Turn your brain off and enjoy.
Episode of Horror Melee, usually coming in from the awesome state of Texas, but today coming from San Francisco, we have Stephanie.
Hey.
Also from the great state of Texas, coming in from Dallas, we have Patrick.
Howdy.
And I'm your host from Chicago. I'm Holly. Today on Horror Melee, we are going to be discussing the 1994 X-Files episode, Beyond the Sea. Beyond the Sea is from Season 1, it's episode 13. It was directed by David Nutter, who is now best known for directing 9 Game of Thrones episodes. And Stephanie, he directed 2 Supernatural episodes.
Whoop whoop! And he did the pilot and Wendigo, right?
Yeah.
I just watched those two.
I was about to say, Patrick, did you get to Wendigo yet?
Yeah, I'm on episode 15.
Nice.
It's weird how long seasons are now from older shows.
Right, where you're like, whoa, 23 episodes? I'm used to an 8 or 10 episode season.
Yeah. And this episode is also written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, who... I think everybody who is an X-Files fan kind of have the consensus that they're a couple of the best writers on the show. And I think my favorite episodes have been theirs. Starring Gillian Anderson, David Duchovny, with guest star Brad Dourif, Don S. Davies, who was known for Stargate SG-1, and Sheila Larkin as Scully's mom. The air date was January 7th, 1994. While ago. Goodness. It seems like 10 years ago. 94 should not be that far away.
You're like, no, it's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
More than that.
So this episode of The X-Files was interesting. It focuses on Scully, and it kind of shows Mulder and Scully's roles flipped. Scully kind of turns into the believer, is trying to learn how to deal with that, and Mulder is the one saying, no, you need to be practical about this. So it's a very interesting episode, and I think this was the first one that really gave Gillian Anderson a chance to act more than just the kind of foil to Mulder's plots and the clinical doctor and everything. So I think she did an amazing job. She was really great. I wanted to listen to this episode because even though it doesn't deal with some kind of supernatural creature of any sort, it's still considered a Monster of the Week episode because it deals with serial killers. And it also has a lot of connections to horror, both nonfiction and fiction. And I love Brad Dourif. I've always been a fan of his.
How come he hasn't won an Emmy yet?
Right?
He is phenomenal.
He is. God.
Because he's one of those actors who does really well, but he's also very over the top on what he does. So it's really good, and he always plays someone who's usually really creepy, who's really good, but I always feel his acting is he goes too much to the point where some people don't like it, I personally like him.
Yeah.
It's he just overdoes it sometimes, in my opinion. But I loved him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's if anybody's unfamiliar with the name, Brad Dourif is best known for portraying Chucky in the Child's Play series, minus the new reboot. And his first movie credit was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, I saw that, but I don't remember him, like, who he was in that. Or
He was Billy. He was the kid that all the other ones were trying to have him
Billy.
sleep with the nurse.
And didn't he end up killing himself in it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think he was nominated.
Yeah, oh man, it was. Yeah, he was a standout in that too. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my god, this guy's so great. And it's like, oh, it's Brad Dourif.
He should be a household name.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of those actors who you're like, oh, I know who this is.
Yeah,
What
he
is
pops
his
up
name?
in a bunch
Yeah.
of stuff. He's in a
Yeah, he's Wormtongue in the Lord of the Rings series.
yeah.
He's all over the map.
Yeah. So, and one of the other reasons that I loved this episode from the first time I saw it was because it reminds me of Silence of the Lambs so much. And like Scully's.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, Scully's relationship with Boggs, who Dourif plays, it just really reminded me of the dynamic that Hannibal and Clarice have. Like, she's curious, but kind of knows what a monster he is capable of being. So she feels weird about being curious and like going to this person for information and trusting them. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see Scully kind of leading a lot of this episode, and how her and Fox totally reversed roles.
Mm-hmm.
And how Fox the whole time was like, don't believe him, he's only doing this because of me.
Still making it about a man.
Yeah, I guess this was written specifically for Gillian Anderson because they were getting complaints about her character and how she was being seen as too uptight and bitchy. So
Wow, really?
Yeah. So, and so early in too, because this is only episode 13. But I can see that because she, like in the pilot episode, she's kind of sent there to debunk everything that Mulder is doing. So she's kind of the wet blanket. But
that's like her job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did this so that they can show that she is so much more than that she has vulnerability and humanity, and it just really gave her the chance to add a ton of layers to her character.
Were people mailing in complaints? Like,
yes.
If this is not, this time it's like everyone's just commenting on the internet about complaints, but are they just like mailing this as like, love the show, love what you guys are doing, Dana, total bitch, tone it down. Tone it down. Like,
they have like a pile of letters. Okay, Scully's a bitch. Scully's cool.
But being like so taken back by a character in a TV show that you physically write a letter, write the address in, put a stamp on it, and mail it to them just to tell them like this character's being a bitch is extreme.
Well,
Patrick, not everyone had computers, so the way people communicated was writing letters, okay? Like, I had pen pals. We wrote letters.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I'm saying, like, you're mailing in to a TV show about a fictional character saying that she's a bitch. It's a little extreme.
Well, that's what people still do today. What's the difference between typing on your computer and putting pen to paper?
I don't know, but mailing it to the actual studio, it's like
mailing a letter is not that hard, Patrick. You literally had envelopes and stamps, and you walked to the end of your driveway or where you whatever, and you
I just
put it
feel
in the
that's
mail
such an
at
old woman, like old lady, old man thing to do.
Oh, you know that there's young kids writing these letters too, okay? All those trolls that exist now existed in the 90s.
Yeah.
Steph, had you seen this episode before?
I did rewatch X-Files a while ago, and this episode didn't stick out to me, and I don't know why, because it was a phenomenal episode. I know I have the terrible habit of not really paying attention, but yeah, I have seen this, but I watched it 3 times and enjoyed rewatching it over and over.
Patrick, where did this fall on the scale for you?
It's an episode, I think, in the first season that definitely stuck out to me more than some of the other episodes. But I remember when I went back through watching the X-Files, I wish they would do more of like the serial killer kind of things. I love the paranormal aspect, obviously, but there's only like, I don't know off the top of my head, but there's only a handful of serial killer episodes I could really think of from the show. And being FBI agents, it's like, I wish they kind of dove into that more, and I wish the episode was so good, and he was such a great character, I wish they kind of kept him around to bring in like this different kind of play with it, but I always say like, I wish it wasn't a one-off episode with him, because I like this aspect of pulling us out of aliens and creature features and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, here's a real life monster, like you said earlier. It's like, it's the real life monster. And I don't know, I just wish they would have done that a little more throughout the show, because like, what other serial killers can you think of in the X-Files?
Well, what about the guy who like could extend his limbs and he like built a nest? Wasn't he kind of like a serial killer? But
he's like a monster. It's like a paranormal monster, right?
Yeah, it feels like the paranormal part to Luther Lee Boggs wasn't the focal point of him, really. Whereas you were thinking of Toombs, Victor, or Eugene Toombs. He, like, that was his thing. Like, he was a paranormal creature. Whereas, like, with Boggs, it's like he just has this, like, something happened to him where it doesn't really affect who he is.
That's true. And
like, he was killing beforehand, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So this, I guess you're right. This really is just OG serial killers.
Yeah.
And in your notes, Holly, I see that there's a lot of serial killers that they kind of pay homage to.
Yeah. Yeah. So Luther Lee Boggs, played by Dourif, and then the other serial killer in this episode, Lucas Henry, they were inspired by real life serial killer Henry Lee Lucas. This is very difficult to say. There's a lot of L's. So Henry Lee Lucas, he was portrayed by Michael Rooker in the 1986 movie Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, if anybody has seen that. And Brad Dourif, like I said before, portrayed Charles Lee Ray, aka Chucky, in Child's Play. And Charles Lee Ray's name was inspired by Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and James Earl Ray. So there's a lot of little, homages to different, like, Americana serial killers. It's weird to grow up kind of being fascinated by serial killers.
Yeah.
And this was one of the things that I had found out, like the inspiration behind the names. And so, I got into reading about serial killers and everything at quite a young age.
It's funny. I love true crime, and I love reading about serial killers and stuff. But I knew this guy back in my hometown in Vegas, and he had hundreds of tattoos of different serial killers on him. And I thought it was the most untasteful thing I've ever seen on someone who could tattoo on their body.
Yeah,
and
one thing to have like a fictional character.
Yeah, but like idolizing like the serial killer aspect is just very, very strange. Yeah. But there's a huge culture around that, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, like I have Michael Myers tattooed on my arm, and it took me a minute to be like, do I really want to have a psycho killer on my arm? Like, what am I trying to say here? What am I, but having like real life serial killers, I think, is different than a fictional killer.
Having Ted Bundy tattooed on your calf, and John Wayne Gacy's Pogo the clown on your shin is just kind of an insult to the families, right? It's just not tasteful.
No. So this is the first time that we get to see Scully's family. And her family pops up a little bit throughout the series. Her dad does make an appearance a little later when she's going through a little tough time. Yeah, I've always liked the actors that portray her parents. Sheila Larkin, that plays her mom, she is she'll pop up here and there throughout the series, and it's always interesting to see Scully with her mom and see her with that, like, just being mothered, and see her kind of turn into like the little girl that, needed her parents. And you can see that here with Scully and her dad. They use their cute little nicknames, Ahab and Starbuck, with each other. And she calls him daddy, which I think is really sweet. But I don't know. It's like whenever I hear an adult say like mommy or daddy, it's usually they're either like really in trouble, like something's going on, or it's just like some kind of sadness that edges it. So you kind of get the sense that Scully and her dad have this great relationship and they're affectionate, but they're not exactly emotionally close to each other. Like they're not able to open up to each other, which really gives weight to what Scully is going through this episode, because she just, like, she asked her mom at the funeral, she's like, was he proud of me? And it's just something that obviously nags at her throughout her entire life. And it's, yeah, they set it up very well in the beginning, and it really adds weight to her trying to find peace with his death.
So her dad's played by Don Davis, and that dude plays every military father in every movie.
Yes.
Even Twin Peaks, he's the military father.
That's my favorite. But he's also like a calm, wise military father who is like always like ghostly, always supernatural. And I love that he plays the same exact character in X-Files as he does in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in everything. And every time I see him pop up, I'm like, oh, it's Scully's dad.
Yeah, right?
He's a good actor, though.
So in the funeral scene, and they play his song, and they like throw his ashes out to the sea. I wanted to ask you guys, what would be your funeral songs?
Ooh. I would love for people to throw my ashes like they did in this episode, because he looked really awkward trying to put those ashes in the water. It's like it looked a lot like the Big Lebowski with the wind was just blowing them back onto the dock.
He's trying to pour it in the water, it's just flying into the air.
Yeah. I love that they have a boombox out in the water.
Yeah. It's not even loud enough. Like,
so I think my funeral song, I would want to be "Jump in the Line." Like at the end of Beetlejuice, and then we could have like we can have like a little ghost party.
Nice.
I don't know. Just
while you think about it, Patrick, I would have whoever's alive that's close to me at the time when I die. I would say like my friends and family. But I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna outlive all them and be alone. Who knows?
Okay.
Have a campfire, play the Whiskey Circle of Death. So you just pass a bottle of whiskey until it's done. And then you play Converge's All That We Love, We Leave Behind. And then just, throw my ashes out in the woods.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. Just throw me away. Just no need. My body's gone.
We'll just donate your body to science.
Perfect. But then actually don't, because now I could get stuck in a museum and then just hear the same loop of like the station next to me for the rest of my eternity. So I'm good.
We'll put your body out somewhere that has high alien. What am I thinking of? Like lots of alien activity in hopes that you get abducted and maybe possessed.
Just tie 4 weather balloons to each one of my limbs and let me float away.
Yes.
I would really hope those balloons would pop and I would land in like a kid's birthday party.
Flop right on the cake.
Yeah.
And then we'll play that one Twin Peaks song that goes like doo doo boo boom.
Yes, that's how I want to go. To Twin Peaks in a child's birthday party falling from the sky.
We'll make it happen. So Mulder, after Scully's dad has died, she goes back to work because she is very checked. She keeps her emotions in check. So she needs to work in order to grieve. And Mulder has dealt with Luther Lee Boggs before. He was the one who was instrumental in getting him into jail. And he claims to have information about a kidnapping and a potential murder that's going on. So they go and talk to Boggs. And I love watching Brad Dourif do his channeling. And
yes,
man, it starts off with Mulder and Scully are there. They're talking to him, and Mulder brings out this piece of cloth, and he says it's from the crime scene. And Boggs does this whole description of what he's seeing, where the kids have been taken to that were kidnapped, and giving a description of the kidnapper. First, I noticed that when he was giving a description, there was no music playing. Like, you see flashes of like what he's describing and there's no music. I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't really notice that before. But man, then Mulder tells him that he tore the piece of cloth from his New York Knicks shirt. So yeah, so then the audience is left thinking, oh, well, is this guy legit? Is he not? There's a lot of, you're kind of going through what Scully's going through in this. Like, you want to believe him so badly because of just how his acting really is what makes you want to believe him, because he's just, doing some mad channeling there, but then it's like, oh, but he's a master manipulator. Is this all just a game? Has he thought about this? Is this something that he's been planning? So I like that, is he, isn't he aspect of this too, trying to find out if he's legit.
Yeah, and I how they set it up also is really unique, because, having Spooky Mulder not believe it, but set it up to where, like, oh, this, it kind of looks real. I'm believing this right now. Was a great way to set it up. They did do something which we can talk about later at the end of the episode, which I did not like with Mulder, which it's still bothering me right now, actually.
Ooh, I think I know what it is. All right, we'll get to that.
But yeah, I loved the setup of, Mulder saying this is not real right off the bat.
Yeah, and then Scully is so taken by Boggs that when she's out driving later, she sees these markers that he was describing, and she decides to just go check it out on her own. And she does find evidence of the kids being there, but like Mulder says, this could have been a trap. Like, what are you doing? This is not like you. You lied about how you found it. And he says people would expect that from Spooky Mulder. So it's also playing with Mulder and Scully and how they see each other, because she's doing these things that shows like, oh yes, I believe him, but she doesn't want to be seen like Mulder. Mm-hmm. So it's, hurtful to him too. And yeah, there's a lot of character relationship going on in here very subtly. That's not just like spelled out for you.
And they do it super smartly too. Like when you go, like going back to the writers, really good writing. Mm-hmm. And especially like the first time they go see Boggs, and Scully, like at the end, he starts singing the Beyond the Sea song, and she like sees her dad, and Fox asks her like, hey, what's up? And she's like, oh, it's just my father, which literally it is. But also like, she's kind of hiding her emotions, and she's not kind of being forthcoming to Fox. She's really like, she has these feelings and she doesn't want to feel them, but she can't avoid them.
Right.
And I find that so interesting, because, I mean, I'm a Virgo and I hate having feelings, but I know that they're there and they exist. But I have my rational side that's always like, shut up, geez, you'll be fine. Just ignore them. But they come out, you have to process them. And I love seeing Scully kind of go through that process.
I also, talking about the writing, one thing they did that, couldn't have been done without, obviously the actress, there's a lot of parts where Scully doesn't talk. And it's just a lot of facial, it's a lot of just trying to see the emotion that she is going through because she's sitting alone or she doesn't know what to say and she's just frustrated. And you feel for her. That's like top-notch TV acting right there.
Yeah. The scene where she's sitting in a chair with a chair across from her and she's just staring, like hoping to see her dad, and you can see her heart break, like when Mulder comes in and it's like, oh God, what am I doing? Like, she's second guessing herself. And and then, when you mention stuff like when she's talking to Boggs and then she sees her father and the way she like pulls back and like shows her like her fear when she sees that, like, oh my God, like did I just see that? Like what's going on? And yeah, she did a really great job, and I'm so glad that whoever wrote those letters, wrote in and complained about her character, because Gillian Anderson is an amazing actress.
Oh yeah.
And I love that they took a chance on her and gave her something like this.
Yeah, I'm really happy though. If this episode, I'm not saying, she wouldn't have character development through all the seasons of The X-Files, but, this being the first season and this being the real first episode that is just her own episode, kind of just focusing a lot on her. If this wasn't in there, it could be her storyline could be completely different. Mm-hmm. How she like acts in the show, everything could have this butterfly effect of Dana Scully becoming a different person I guess if people didn't write those letters.
Yeah, because it could so easily have fallen into just becoming another cliche character in an FBI procedural show.
And good on, the producers and everyone and Chris Carter for like taking those letters and realizing, we need to change something. Good on them. Because Game of Thrones could have done that for season 7 and 8. A lot of people writing in, but you guys didn't.
I've always been impressed with this show taking the fans' feelings into account. I think that the series went several different paths than it could have had they not listened to fans and what they wanted. And it's like the fans had so much influence over the show that there was a fan fiction writer she wrote a ton of stories. She's a really good writer. She had cancer, and they actually named a character after her in the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good on them.
Yeah, like people who were involved in the production of the show, like they would go on forums and they would talk to fans, and, they really listened. And I think that's part of what makes this show so amazing, is that it's not that it's pandering to the fans or, like really giving you what you want, but just taking all of these little things and turning it into, okay, how can we make this better? Not just give them what they want, but how do we make this better?
Yeah, and, there is not a lot of shows that do that, if any. Mm-hmm. Game of Thrones just, obviously based off a book, so they're going off what the writer wants, but the show diverted from the book so much, and fans were like, this is what we want, but they just were like, no, this is what we're going to give you. They could have listened to the fans a little bit and made some changes or done some things differently. Or you have shows like who just like listen to the fans so much and then give the fans what they want and then the fans hate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's like, why did you give me what I wanted? But without fans, and there'd be no shows.
That's true. No, that's true.
So my favorite scene in this episode is when, after Mulder gets shot and she rushes into his cell and she's yelling at him. She does her whole great, like, if he dies, like, I'm going to be the one to gas you out of here. And that interaction between them is really the one that reminded me of Silence of the Lambs, which is funny because Fox didn't want to do this episode because it was too close to Silence of the Lambs.
Weird.
So yeah, thought that was interesting. But I don't know. The way that they interact with each other, you can tell that there's a respect that's happening between them, because he does decide to help her and he doesn't have to. And he says, like, he knows that she tried to get him a deal, so he didn't have to go into the chamber or anything. And, he helps her when he didn't have to. And that's like kind of the same thing with Hannibal and Clarice. Like, they have this kind of respect going on that isn't really there for anybody else. But I had drawn a picture of Brad Dourif from that scene, and I met him at a convention last year.
Fun.
Yeah, he and his daughter Fiona Dourif were both there, and I got his autograph on that. They're so sweet. They're adorable. Nice. They did like a duo picture together, so I have a picture of us with them. So it's like, father-daughter is so cute.
Nice.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
But that scene, the one you're talking about where she's like yelling at him, and then I forget what she says, but it was like starts making her grab her head, and she's like, no, no, no. Yeah. I felt that. That was like probably the best acting in the entire first season of X-Files.
Yeah.
You set us up. You're in on this with Lucas Henry. This was a trap for Mulder because he helped put you away. Well, I came here to tell you that if he dies because of what you've done, 4 days from now, nobody will stop me from being the one that'll throw the switch and gas you out of this life for good, you son of a bitch!
Dana, you're the one that believed me.
No! No, I do not believe you!
You don't believe me. Maybe you believe yourself.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, like, I should watch the episode before this to kind of get into Scully's headspace to really appreciate how out of her headspace she is in this episode,
Yeah.
And yeah, it screams Silence of the Lambs. I didn't realize that until you said it. And I'm like, yeah, even the scenes where Scully is like behind the bars looking through and they zoom in and she walks closer to the bars. I'm like, their hair is like the same. It's so similar.
I think I remember reading that I don't remember if it was Silence of the Lambs or if it was Hannibal, but I'm pretty sure they wanted Gillian Anderson to play Clarice. I don't remember which one.
Jodie Foster, like, come on.
Right. But the episode before this one is Fire.
Yeah, where the guy can catch himself on fire and he goes into hhouses. And that's the episode, right?
Yeah, and
he's
Mulder...
the gardener. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when one of Mulder's, partner or somebody he went to school with in England, Phoebe Green, she's in that episode. So there's a bit of jealousy going on Scully's part, and Mulder he has a fear of fire, and he's dealing with this person who can create fire. He's pyrokinetic.
That'd be if that was real, that'd be fucking terrifying,
right?
Just throwing that out there.
Mulder and Scully were going through some emotional stuff prior to this episode.
It kind of blows my mind in the first season how fast they do go through emotional things with each other, because they just started working with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad they did. I mean,
I do too. I think that's part of the good writing too, because they don't have to take the time to overtly say, this is what's going on with me. Like with Scully's relationship with his father, you get that sense. They don't have to say it. She doesn't have to say, oh, my father and I had a strained relationship. Like, I love him and everything. It's shown throughout how they talk to each other. And then at the funeral, when she's asking her mom, was he proud of me? And she says, he was your father. That's echoed later at the end of the episode. And she's like, yeah, he was my father. And that's, the writers didn't have to spell everything out for us. Yeah. They just did all these little subtle things, and they did it well enough to where you can pick up on it.
Yeah, there's like a lot of newer shows and stuff like that sometimes over-explain. I always hate when people assume the audience is dumb. It's like, we won't figure this out. You guys are too stupid if we don't tell you or show you. You have to know. And it's like, but you're right. This show, they don't need to. They show you what they want. Other than that, interpret it yourself. They don't need to talk about it. Move along.
Yeah, one thing I was like, what are you doing? When Mulder was like, Dana, you're here. I thought you wouldn't be. And then he like caresses her face. I was like, boundaries, sir? I mean, I know like everyone's into like their shipping or whatever, but I was like, that's a little, it's work inappropriate, sir.
Yeah. It's also season 1.
Right? Like this is, yeah, I'm like, let's pump the brakes. Also, like, I don't want anybody to like caress my face ever. And if someone did that at work, I'd be like, okay, I'm walking away from you and avoiding you for the next week. Ew.
Yeah.
I know, like, you're like, oh, it's so nice that they're like showing their sensey size, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I like a sensey side, but like a sensey side at like a 3, not like a let's get some mood lighting and touch each other's faces.
You're right. It is pretty inappropriate for work. So David Duchovny can caress my face anytime he wants to.
Yeah, he could caress my face too. That's my man crush right there. Ducov.
My face is off limits.
So Boggs does help Scully. He helped find the kids and they saved them. And then Boggs had told Scully that if she went to his execution, he would give her the message from her father. That was from the beginning when she sees his ghost and he's talking. She wanted to know what he says. And she winds up not going because, like she told Mulder, he was my father. She doesn't need to know what he was saying. She knows in her heart what he was saying. Patrick?
Yeah.
What was the thing that bothered you? Because I think it's the same thing that bothered me.
This entire episode, Fox says, do not trust him. He's a manipulator. It's not real. And the end of the episode, he's like, oh, you're not going to believe anymore? It's not, you don't think it's real? And I'm like, you've literally been saying this entire fucking episode, this is not real. And it was probably not real. I'm going to look at it as like, yeah, they talked about him seeing the dead people and all that, but him being such a elaborate manipulator is creepier to me. So I'm going to go and believe that route. And, that's what Fox kept saying the entire time. This is not real. And then that last words, he's like, oh, you're not going to believe? You don't think it's real?
Yeah, after all the evidence? What evidence?
Yeah, I would have taken my hand and pushed on the bullet wound on his leg or stomach, wherever he got shot.
Mulder, you idiot. So, yeah, that's the one thing that always tripped me up. I was like, wait, I don't understand. Why are you going back on what you were saying this whole time? So I think I realized that is meaning to say, why don't you believe yourself about her seeing her father and like wanting to believe in something that's out of her comfort zone, something paranormal. I don't think it was written or delivered properly. No. Because it makes it seem
from Fox,
like,
right?
Yeah, because it does make it seem like he is talking about Boggs specifically. But I think it was the overall general, like, why don't you believe in yourself and in the paranormal?
I can accept that.
Yeah, I think it was just like it was done weird.
So you got, they wrote that episode perfectly until the last,
right?
half a page.
Well, Fox needed better direction on that. I think his delivery definitely threw it off because Dana, when she's like, I'm afraid to believe, again, I believe her. I can feel her. I like empathize with her. And she gives you the answer that everyone's like, why don't you believe, in this stuff? Because she's afraid to. I'm also going to say, like, watching this episode and even rewatching X-Files, I'm like, David Duchovny's like an okay actor, but compared to Gillian Anderson, like, not a really good actor.
Right, yeah. He's got that. In the movie, they make a little joke that he's like, oh yeah, when I panic, I make this face. And it was just a deadpan face. So yeah, that's pretty much his face.
He always has like a half smile, where it's like, are you smiling or are you like in the middle of a sentence? Like, did your face freeze? That's like how he acts.
One thing also threw me off because I didn't know gas chamber executions were a thing that were used in prisons.
Yeah.
I thought it was lethal injection, electric chair. They did shootings and hangings. I never knew. I thought like the whole gas chamber thing after World War II would have not have been a positive thing to do to people.
There's a movie called The Chamber. It was made in 1996. Again, I was 10 years old. Yeah.
Gene Hackman and babyface Robin, what's his name? Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Oh, my man Chris O'Donnell?
Yeah.
Vertical Limit?
I used to watch that movie a lot.
Vertical Limit?
No, The Chamber.
Patrick, you should watch it because, yes, Holly, this whole episode also reminded me of that movie. And in that movie, Gene Hackman portrays dying in the chamber. And I saw it as a young gal, and it was very scary.
Yeah. Patrick, you said that you preferred to believe that Boggs was just manipulating. Is that across the board? You just think he's like nothing paranormal?
No, I loved how he said, he's like, when I sat in that chair, I felt every fear that I have ever put on anyone.
Yes.
And that I love.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is great. But at the same time, the whole channeling, I don't know, I'd rather believe he was like a master manipulator and he just was trying to save his own skin. So.
Fox didn't want to cast Brad Dourif in this because he was too expensive. So Chris Carter had to really push for it, and they agreed to let him appear, and they paid him $15,000.
For this one episode, huh?
Yep.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pennies compared to what some actors get per episode.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. $15,000 doesn't sound like that much.
Yeah.
For a TV actor, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's this book. It's called X-Files Confidential. It's an unofficial little companion book written by fans. And it has a little passage here. It said, director David Nutter felt the portrayal of Boggs benefited from he himself assisting the actor, later stating about Dourif, I thought I helped bring him to where he should have been, and we were able to capture what he could really do on screen.
How did he get him there, though? Is he just trying to take credit, or is he going to describe how he got him there?
Yeah, it sounds like Fox being like, oh, he's only doing this because of me.
I will say this, though. David Nutter directed some of my favorite Game of Thrones episodes of all time.
Yeah.
But he also directed some of my least favorite episodes of all time.
Yeah, I want to know, like, hey, what'd you guys do? How'd you get there?
He's like, I kept slapping him in the face until he cried, and then we got the scenes. Because in every scene, Boggs' tears are somehow rolling down his face, but getting caught at the edge of his nose, so it looks like snot, but it's not. It's a tear just hanging out there.
Yeah. All right, so what do we say we wrap this one up and rate this?
We can rate it cruise liners. Just kidding.
I don't know. What do you want to rate it by?
How many ghosts this episode channeled?
Family member ghosts? Yeah.
His last meal did look pretty good, though. I will say that. That donut.
Do you think
on there?
so? Okay, so I was going to
know.
ask you, was that a donut or was that like an English muffin?
I thought it was, at first I thought it was going to be like an apple pie. Because it was during Thanksgiving where he killed his family, right? So maybe he's trying to relive it once. But I was like, a donut as your last like dessert meal? I was like, it's obviously Jellyfield, so okay. I'll go with it.
I will say those peas looked a little brown for my liking.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, not everything on the plate was good.
Just the donut.
I mainly just stared at the donut.
All right, Donut Man, what do you think about this, and what are you going to rate it?
I will say, like, out of all the X-Files episodes I've watched, just pretty much all of them, I do like these episodes where they take it out of the paranormal world. I mean, there's still obviously little paranormal aspects here and there, but they take it out and they focus on the individual character or them as a whole as a character, and, you know, kind of dives in a little mentally, and we can see what the character's thinking a little more and how they're feeling. And to be, you know, in the first season of your series and have a show this episode so well written, these great actors, yeah, puts it up higher on the list for me. So I'm going to give this 4.5 ghost. Because, I'm all about the monster episodes for X-Files. And usually they're creature features, not people. But this is a different aspect of it. You have this crazy guy, and you're feeling for Dana a lot. So 4 out of 5 ghosts. So I guess one of those ghosts is a kid or a midget.
Steph, how about you?
I will give this 4 out of 5 Family Ghosts 2. I really enjoyed watching this, and this episode was really well done. I thought it was really smart. I liked the writing, and a lot happens in the episode, and the pacing is really good. There are a few twists. Like, I was surprised at the end. You wanted to see Scully show up and Boggs, give her the message, but he was a little sad and he dropped his head like, oh, that's it, I'm dead. And then at the end of this, Scully's just like, I'm not going to believe. He's my father. That's it. I'm going to just box it up, put it away.
Yeah, this is and has been for a long time my favorite X-Files episode. And like you said, Patrick, I love those episodes where they're really focusing on Mulder and Scully, but they're not part of those mythology episodes where it gets really deep and it gets into all the government stuff, because those have a lot of character development, but I like these where it's a monster but it's just that's only just the catalyst to really delve into what's going on with our main characters. And yeah, I've always loved this one, and I think that the acting is amazing in this one. I like going along the ride with Scully of, should I believe this guy? Should I not?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to give this one 5 out of 5.
Nice.
Nice.
So if you guys haven't seen this episode, Beyond the Sea, you guys should definitely check it out.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
You can watch it on Hulu.
Yeah.
Or however y'all watch X-Files out there.
If you have the giant DVD box or the Blu-ray edition that came out, you can watch it on there.
Yeah, I have the big box set.
Or if you have the
VHS.
Yeah.
2 episodes
Laserdisc,
on
maybe.
each tape.
Yeah.
Just a whole wall of X-Files VHS tapes.
I would love that.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to us chat about an episode of the X-Files. And we would love it if you all subscribed. Check us out on horrormelee.com, where you can find all of our older episodes. And join us on Facebook and Instagram and chat us up. Let us know what you're thinking, if there's something you want us to watch and review. And you can also...
Or if you want to watch something, let us know what you guys are watching.
Yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's be friends.
Yeah, give us feedback and tell us how we're doing and if we need to be more sentimental and less cold.
We actually only accept it through mail, though. Pony Express, UPS.
And fun stamps only. None of this flag generic stuff. No. I want a fun stamp.
I was considering Boggs. If he knew that I was your partner, he could have found out everything he knew about me, about my father.
Scully.
Beyond the Sea was playing at my parents' wedding. Visions of deceased loved ones are a common psychological phenomena. If he knew that my father had...
Dana, after all you've seen, after all the evidence, why can't you believe?
I'm afraid. I'm afraid to believe.
You couldn't face that fear? Even if it meant never knowing what your father wanted to tell you?
But I do know.